Welcome to Shom Machshava on the Daf. Shir sponsor Lurnishbas Armbiak V'Sholom Le'Abbas Yitzchok. We're holding in Sanhedrin Daf Memches. The Gemara towards the end of Amud Beis says that Omav Yud Omarav Kol Kilaloi Shekilal David Es Yoyov Niskaimu Bezara Shel David. All the curses that David HaMelech said to Yoav, instead of going to Yoav, it went to the children of David HaMelech. And the Gemara concludes in the end of the Amud and says, better to be the one receiving the curse than the one giving the curse, because if the curse doesn't chal, it comes back to the one who cursed. So the Maharal has a big yisoid that he mentions in a few places in his Sfar. Over here in Chidush HaGadas, he starts by saying that when a person gives a curse, it's like throwing a stone into a wall. If the stone lands, so then the stone will remain on the wall. But if it hits a brick wall and it doesn't have where to land, what's going to happen? It's going to go back, it's going to bounce back to the one who threw it. The Maharal says, we find another place like this. The Gemara in Shabbos Daf Tzaddik Zayin says, "Hachoshid b'ksherim lo kibegufoi." Someone who suspects people for doing something wrong, but they're kosher, they didn't do anything wrong, so he himself will be lo kibegufoi. Why is that so? Because the chashad, the suspicion, is like throwing some dirt on that person. If it doesn't hit, it's going to hit back. And with this understanding, the Maharal in the Gurarya and Chumash, Pasha Shoftim, on the pasuk that says, "Vasitzim loy kasher zomam." So we know Chazal tell us kasher zomam veloy kasher oso. Eidim zomim get punished only if they intended to do something bad, but it did not happen. If it happened, so then they don't get punished. So the Maharal goes there to explain why. He brings the Ramban, the famous Ramban, that says that if Akash Baruch Hu allowed it to happen, so that means that person deserved it. And the Maharal doesn't like that explanation of the Ramban. So he goes to say other explanations. And he comes to the conclusion, it says, the real explanation is as following. Ikar ha'tam hu inyan niflo yesh lecha lahavin mimilas kasher zomam. And he goes on to explain, when there is kasher zomam, when a person has a bad thought that he wants to put into somebody else, if that thought is not chal, if that thought doesn't go onto that person, it's going to bounce back on the person who had the bad thought. He brings the example to that, what it says in Megillas Esther, Yoshu machshavto haro shechoshav ala Yehudim al roishoy. The bad machshava of Haman, he intended to do bad. He had that bad machshava, it turns around to go on him. So the Maharal explains, when there is a machshava, there's a bad intention, that bad machshava needs to be chal. It's going somewhere. So either it hits where it's supposed to get, or it does not hit, and then it bounces back to where it came from. And he goes on to bring the two Gemaras, our Gemara and the Gemara in Shabbos, it's the same idea. There is a bad thought, there's a bad klala that's being thrown on somebody. If it's chal, if it falls there, it remains there. There's going to be a time a person is going to have to give din cheshbon shamayim if that did not work like it was supposed to be. But if it did not fall there, it needs to fall somewhere else. So where does it go? It's like a ball bouncing on the wall. It goes to the wall and it bounces back. It goes back to where it came from. And that's the site, says the Maharal, kasher zomam veloy kasher oso. Once it was nesa, it doesn't bounce back. Again, that person will need to be judged in shamayim. But it doesn't bounce back. But when it's still a machshava and it's like trying to reach a destination, it doesn't reach it, so then it turns around and goes back to where it came from. And in Be'er Goyel, the Maharal adds one more sentence to this. He says, when it's a machshava, it's easy to shift. The machshava is going somewhere, and it could be going different ways. It's like the bullet, when it's in the air. If it shifts a little bit to the right, to the left, it can go somewhere else. Once it already fell somewhere, once it already is in its place, so then to go and now change its direction and restart it, that's a whole different parsha. It's not the same idea. So our Gemara is telling us, if a person goes and gives a curse to somebody, and it's not going to be chal, like by the case of Yoav, that because Yoav was punished to be with death, so he didn't deserve the klala, so then the klala it's not chal, but you still have that klala in the ear, so to speak. So where does it go? It bounces back to where it came from. And that's why all the klalas that David gave Yoav were chal in his zaroi. That's why the Gemara tells us, it's better to get the curse than to give the curse, because if you give the curse, it's not supposed to go there, it will come back. Anyone who wants to join the Shom Machshava email list to WhatsApp group, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.